Hey everybody, this is PD from Spinnerback, and today I am back with my Fantastic Four full circle. I am totally enamored with this, possibly the best Fantastic Four thing that's been out so far. And if story-wise it's not that, visually it's possibly the best piece that Alex Ross of Marvel's fame, of Kingdom Come, and the various Treasury editions that he had done. What else? Of course, you have his mythology. I don't have his Marvelocity, which has some of the Fantastic Four stuff that he did, which could have been a big help for this video. But we have some other things to do, right? So let's put these other books back. They're not helping us right now, right? So we're going to go through this book at some point in this video. But I want to stress what I said when I did a video a while back about the graphic novel, right? That it not just be about the story, it be about the visuals, right? And here's one classic graphic novel where you see moods change with the use of color, right? So not just image and story, but this thing changes as the moods go. As you see, I keep going, you see different types of visuals, stuff like that. This is kind of what, when you hear the word graphic novel, you kind of look for. It's the same graphic outside of, being violent or something like that. But and this is like one of the traditional Marvel type graphic novels as far as the story. It's possibly utilizing flashbacks and stuff just like the Doom one. I had the Doom one here somewhere. There, don't I? Yes. So that'd be better than showing She-Hulk. This has a Fantastic Four in it, right? And we have Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom. So it's similar in that, where they have a lot of flashbacks, drawing from the past, utilizing past stories to do a tale, utilizing all of that for the future. So it's very much similar to the 80s graphic novels, story-wise, but I think the tone is a little more 70s. With the 70s, outside of the death of Phoenix, the 70s was kind of the tread water period for Marvel, so it was a little less tragic than the 80s. Like Death of Phoenix, Death of Captain Marvel. Death of Captain Marvel was a graphic novel, stuff like that, right? That was very much about the story, right? Even the X-Men one, which has great visuals, it was still very much story-based, right? So I wanted to talk about something that Alex Ross is doing here, which is just my opinion, because I don't really know color theory that great. But one of the things that I really enamored with was comic book color, right? And when I would look at some comic books, I would see some old comics, or I look at some Charleston comics, and they had this sort of mood color. And then when I see EC would have this mood color. So I'm just going to go through some things to kind of show you how we got to here, because graphically, Alex Ross's piece very much has mood kind of color, which is one of the things that comic books utilized throughout their time in the past, more in the 50s and 60s, less so now. But I showed you the Dave Mazzucchelli graphic novel, which kind of did that. I want to go through some things to the past, to the future, and then we're going to go through this. So it's going to take a little while before we get through this, so I hope you guys stay along for the journey, right? So I put some post-its in here so I can get through this. We're going to go through some EC stuff, right? So I'm going to stay wide for a while because it's going to be hard. So EC, we also had a great colorist in Marie Severin. And this, we see it seems straightforward up until we get here. So like comic books at this period was very much influenced by Citizen Kane and the lighting in there. So, but they had the palette they had, they really wouldn't utilize, well, this, you see, we're using black and white here. But most of the time for black and white, we use like blue, this color blue, and yellow, right? So you see this sort of thing happening for like dramatic elements. They would have these panels that would be like 2-color or 3. Sometimes it utilizes spotlight, that sort of thing. So as you go along with the story, it's not just doing a straightforward coloring book. It would be setting the mood, right? And so you see, going through the flashbacks, kind of setting the mood as they tell the story. We go through that, and you kind of see stuff happen with these panels, and then a little drama with the light and the different backgrounds. The backgrounds don't stay the same color as you move along in the story, right? And he's searching to see, turning yellow, that sort of thing. So it's kind of this like drastic approach to coloring, which really was strong for the period. Now you have so many great colorists that come along in present day, but it's like this sort of mood stuff you don't really get that much anymore, right? So let's go, we're looking at some Jack Davis stuff right here, and this one's a nice one. Really start straightforward, sort of sets the mood with the blue, right? You know, it's nighttime, right? Crypt Keeper there. Real, pretty much straightforward as you go along, right? And then when we get to here, the dark areas, we got this, what's the name? There was like the blue and the yellow with some sense of white, and then even the more graphic stuff is kind of like two-tone type of deal, right? So you kind of see these sort of effects that they do. And we have the Great Wally Wood here. Now this, since his stuff is kind of high contrast type of deals, we're going to see his art somewhere later too. But you see this sort of effect with this one sort of, sometimes this is where comic books would use this for effect at times. So this is still kind of straightforward except for the backgrounds. The backgrounds are just yellow, right? So you see the backgrounds here, but it pops, right? Which is kind of cool, right? With a limited palette of what they had using these dyes in the 4-color process, they're really kind of making things pop and stuff like that, right? And it's nothing really dramatic except for here, but he already has the shading there, so it's not really any sort of drastic panels and that sort of stuff. I think the last one I have is Al Williamson, who kind of so you start straightforward, and then as you go along, you see this one going to that blue, right? A little bit of yellow at top. Same here. That's flashback sort of thing. All right. You got the yellow for the people in spotlight with the teacher in the background, so it kind of goes dull. And then see another shot going mostly yellow with some red, some more of that. This sort of thing. So it's sort of like a high contrast. And then here we get almost this dramatic moment here too. So yeah, it's one of those things where the coloring was a strong part of this, not just kind of, you know, paint within in the lines, right? So this would have effect on a lot of other artists. So I'm going to do one of the ones I always do. It's just Sky Masters of Space Force. You can see the colors on the cover. And I believe Kirby colored this stuff. I'm not sure about the other stuff, but let's go to the back, because that actually has the actual colors here, right? So you can see when they were doing the colors, the hand-colored panels, they were kind of separating them from to make different things pop that are more important as you're going on. Like this panel here, this is like what I'm talking about here, having this dramatic moment, right? And then it kind of calms down here, and then another dramatic moment here, right? But not even like dealing with like almost going for solid colors on these characters, right? And the same going here. You have this sort of thing where they kind of did a little more spotty, like red to the blues here. A little less of the yellow, like I was saying, but see, having almost like in film, this would be more gels, but they really kind of bring out the sort of Citizen Kane lighting, but using color to add some contrast to things that, you know, just would be kind of a plain thing that you could do. So I just wanted to show you these type of deals in the comic books that sort of spotlight different things. You just go here for the dramatic effect with the blues here. So, we're getting through this faster than I expected, right? So I don't want to do, I did want to show Steve Ditko, but I have to use 2 different volumes. I'm going to use actually 3, because he is one of the, his stuff always pops with this sort of color, right? So we have his Kanga, and in Kanga, we kind of have this red plane, right? And as of right now, you don't really see much here outside of probably the color kind of going out. But then we see this character who's like this solid red. And this is, the attention's drawn to him, but he's kind of the background. So it's kind of this thing that can draw spotlight to different things. And he would do this with certain characters. Like here, you have this is like a solid color in comparison to Homegirl was with the light is on her, that sort of thing. So you're getting this mood feeling here. Now, here's another shot over here, right? Where it gets this kind of mood thing where the spotlight is kind of splitting there. See how the color changes is set up with the blue, but then the dramatic change to red here, then calming down with the greens. So it's like it's not supposed to be the actual background. A lot of times when people do like the Batman TV show and like Batman Forever, they would kind of do these backgrounds, but at the same time, they weren't really there for that. It's really, they would try to do like the gels to kind of get this effect where this character's in all in red. But what else would Ditko? No, this, one of the things I wanted to show with the X-Men, but I'm going to stick with Ditko here. And I guess I'm going to stop with him after this one. Right? And in this book, he has 2 things which I wanted to show. Right? So this kind of high contrast drawing, right? And he's green in this escape, but then he's dark green here. The background is kind of stayed the same, but then here kind of changes. So it's like you can see they're constantly using this sort of different techniques. Change from nighttime with these blues to this daytime thing here, right? So that's good enough for that. But this one will be a different one, right? This is, I think this is like the 70s, right? Yeah, 1972. So this is Charleston, and here we'll be using solid colors on the scenes, right? So right now you see it's sectioned off by color, and here this one's not really sectional, it's more montage, but the very simple colors, and then as you go along, the panels would be done as one simple color, right? As you go along to add the drama, right? Calming down here and adding tension to it. So yeah, this is what it's kind of the, I think I can now, since I've given you so many examples, no, I had to do a curvy one, right? I'm gonna do a curvy one and a, yeah, let's do a curvy one. Because curvy one is a little, we already saw the Sky Masters of Space Wars with Wally Wood. Well, let's use this sampler here, right? You look at the cover and you're like, oh, there's nothing, no that there. We start off green background, yellow characters, purple background, right? And then let's see, so there's more of that done. When you go inside, this is more like regular day when you're outside, right? But then there's this effect, this light here. So this is kind of making this different color happen to the outdoors. On the inside, it suggests that it's like dark. We have like the spotlight on these two characters. These guys are more in the background, as is this. Even though it's in the foreground, it's less important. And then they turn green, but the spotlight's still kind of on them with the white around them. So you can see that in this sort of thing. This book has a million of this. These solid colors on characters, and at the same time, I can see it here, right? This sort of lighting that's going on in coloring, right? So we have that. And before I move on to something more current, right? Because even though it kind of died out, certain colorists would do it. I'm pretty sure more than what I'm going to point out, but I'm going to go to Joe Simon. Joe Simon's a little less known because we know the Simon and Kirby style, this is kind of it. But if we go to the Dukes of Broadway, we have this story here. Once again, spotlight's kind of here. This is supposed to be kind of a little bit obscure, so you focus here. Same with this. These guys are obscured with one color. You can see more of that. This is why when you do like huge wide shots with tons of characters, with color you can bring the spotlight to the characters. I think Eric Larson was pointing out a burn page that had a lot of detail, but they said, how do you pop? This is what the whole colorist is there for. I think it's a commanding page, right? Right? See, they're not important, but this person right here is very important, right? I think that leads to the bottom thing at the end. I'll do one which is more Kirby, which is you see this building that's multicolored, but it's really just kind of setting the mood of the type of building it is. And then right here, you can see it's got blue, red, green, and so that's green also. The flame is green. This is a little greenish, with kind of mostly yellow, but green, that sort of thing. So this is the coloring, and then here, you're getting carried over. All that's yellow with a red background. So it's kind of giving you that kind of high contrast without just black and white, right? So yeah, there we go with that. That gives you an example now. I would say, I don't think it entirely died out. Certain artists would do that. So in the 60s, outside of Ditko, here we have Tom Palmer, who was inking, and I've showed you this before, right? Let's put this back where it's supposed to be. Don't need the stickers, but I'll do it there. We go to this, and this is printed differently than the paper, but it's still a good example, right? This is standard, sort of like the coloring book approach. But see how when we go here from this background to having the green there, and then almost solid green with some light colors here, right? And the same here. This is like, like almost two colors, but there's a little blue here, right? With the pink and white with a little bit of blue there. And as you go along, you'll see it a little more, like in this one, getting that comic book color, which this is like the high contrast area. Instead of this one's a little more direct, but using this burgundy background for the contrast. This one suggests the dark lighting, but this is something that you could do in film with gels or something like that. All right. And is there anything else? Oh yeah, so him right here being a solid green, even though this is a human guy here, kind of pops differently. And these guys is more direct because he's right in the middle. So you can see the X-Men, and these guys are kind of single color, so they pop less, right? So it's all giving you this mood, right? Like right here, right? These nobodies, but they look like they're doing something important, right? So we have that. Before we get to it, we're almost there. How long? We're 20 minutes in. Sorry, guys. I gotta do this. We have the great Lynn Varley, right? And Lynn Varley, see, this is almost two color here, right? So the figure is red and the background is like light blue, and you'll see it early on in this book, this kind of approach to color. Same with this shot here, all right? Then it starts out regular. Statues are one color. There's flush colored people. The backgrounds are changing though, just like the older comic books, right? And the same for here. Giving spotlight to this action. You know, the background's changing color. But this human, they still haven't lost their like human complexion here, right? So there's a lot of where the backgrounds are changing. It still kind of keeps that, but then now Ronan here is almost same as a statue, same color as a statue, and it's close to death like his master, but his master says no, right? You see here, the same, almost the same complexion. So there's some mood that's going on in this book, very much so. So they're keeping some of that in their approach to it, right? I think when they get back to it, yeah, this stuff here, giving you that mood, right? And then the solid color here when he gets cut, all right? So it's all this kind of mood stuff. I don't think, I guess I'm going on as long as I could, right? So I've given you the example of mood coloring, the simple kind, which is kind of flat colors. And then I've also given you Tom Palmer's approach and Lynn Varley's approach. I could do, so here we go. We're going through this guy, right? Now this right here is kind of the straightforward Alex Ross origin kind of page. This was in the same as the Treasury editions at DC, right? So we got this cool cover, origin, with some classic homages to the characters, and this piece together like almost covers and stuff like that, right? And here we go. This is exactly what I was talking about. We got like Sue and Johnny, one color, where you have Reed and Reed and Ben a different color, the orange, right? So it's not exactly the same, but you'll see him kind of utilize not necessarily a 4-color process, but kind of give you a mood as the scenes go by, right? So here, once again, you have the blues and the yellows with the regular drawing, right? So it has that kind of feel of that period what I was talking about, right? And the same with the first shot here. The backgrounds has that, and if you remember with the color from the 50s and early 60s, there would be kind of mistakes where colors kind of bleed over. So he's kind of doing it with a person who has a good sense of color, right? Even here, he's kind of going Ben in the foreground and then kind of softening. Instead of this being black, it'd be kind of lightening the texture of the skin of the thing, right? See him, he's solid blue here, yellow light, right? Same here. Then Johnny shows up, and he's not flesh colored when he shows up. But Ben is close to his, a little closer to his complexion, which would be like here. And still, since it's kind of dark lighting, it's kind of suggesting that you wouldn't necessarily see Johnny clearly, so he kind of stays this alternate color also, this kind of purplish gray color, and they do a little separation for the shirt. But this monster comes in here, and I guess I'm not going to give you the story. I'm just going to show you the visuals right now, because we stayed in this sort of template, but then as this character comes, you start to see more color kind of bleed out, right? And with the light on, you see more color kind of bleed out, right? It's still kind of stylized, but it's that. So then we go to the flashback here, and that's done in a different tone. You saw how EC would do theirs, and he's, you know, doing his own style for it, right? I don't really want to give away too much of the story, because it's a decent story, right? You recognize the character, you know, join in and say something, right? So then, as this happens, the background changes, having more reds in the background. The reed is a little close, reed and so a little bit closer to flesh tone here, right, with the reds there, but they're a little close to the background too, but they still kind of pop, right? But it's this melee that's happening here, and he's already shown he can draw the torch, and he's giving a slight, not that different, but no, I guess it's the same approach, right? And I think all the time it took him to get to this part is worth the wait, because he really kind of figured out how to do the Fantastic Four in that time, right? Oh, and Sue kind of showed up early, but she was invisible because she didn't have any clothes on, right? All right, and so see, they're on the close as they're clearing up this. Now with a flesh colored background, obviously is just not like that. You're not even supposed to think about it like that. You know, basically that sort of thing would be brought out by gels and film, but they're close to human complexion, right? And then of course they go into the negative zone, a little homages here, right? Kind of Kirby girl, still hippie. And a little bit of flashback here of a nihilist. And then this is something he's been working on for a long time. Some new outfits with some new things on it, bells and whistles. So this has a null fill. Talks about the null fill in here, but at the same time, the null fill was something that was introduced in the Burn Run. So we're having bits from the characters from the 60s, from the greatest period in comics, and some bits from Burn, and then these textures that Alex Ross is doing with the new outfits, which is really cool, right? So this is the hard part for the film. I don't know how the film is going to compete with Alex Ross doing this type of stuff where they go to the distortion area, right? And you see them possibly close to the way they would regularly be done, but then when we get to the dark, it's again with the blues, right? So instead of not like how Sin City was, it's kind of utilizing color to suggest being in the cave and such like stuff like that, right? And you have this. Now this is kind of more from that issue of the Fantastic Four. The coloring was wrong, and it had the day glow, and then Marvel did a ton of day glow type stuff. So this kind of has that feel, right? And then they're visible using that sort of lined approach that Kirby did once and Byrne used a lot. Right, and as it goes, they get to a next section with different lighting. And this is something that Wally Wood talked about, like having a torch here, and he would do all lighting effects. So the lighting on them is actually from the torch, right? And then we see there this other villain that they pop up and have to fight. And this is kind of like a Star Trek 60s type of villain. But here, torch kind of giving you this lighting effect along with these characters. And you get these sort of weird sort of effects here, right? This glow in the dark type of deal. All right. And this creature has them captured and the lights go out. All right. And as it comes back, pointing out the issues the Fantastic Four is having. And he's laughing. But Sue was helping him out. And then, of course, the FF spring into action. Right? And as they're fighting it, they realize who the guy is. Right? And then Niles comes. Then we see him in his regular face. And FF is quick to get out of there. Right? And then here's a bit from they get the platform. This is a bit from Burn where you would have them Sue making the platform and they ride on it, sort of like a Green Lantern type thing. And then Reed figures, of course, a way to take this character out. And they move on to the next section. You see, whatever these cosmic crackles having, there's a different lighting effect on them, right? So he's kind of all mood. It's not necessarily using it exactly, but he's bringing his own flourishes to it. Now this is the planet that everyone kind of, in the negative zone that they kind of fall to, where it's the negative matter will meet positive matter, and there's nothing they can do. They're heading right for it, but Reed has a plan, right? So he's saying that everyone would die if you go next to that thing. Right? He said, nope, with these no-fills, I think we can get through it, right? You see, as they get closer, the lighting changes on them again, right? This is kind of what Wally Wood wanted to do with the torch fighting the thing. And he's upset. It's like, hey, you're putting through something where they could die. This is kind of what happened when they were in a negative zone on the Burn run. But they have the setup where we have Sue doing a force field and Johnny doing this thing at the same time, right? And they're going through, and they make it through in the whole new environment. This is a homage to a Kirby shot from the early run. I think it might be Corgo. I could be wrong, right? And they get there, they get attacked. The missile comes by them, and the lighting's a little more straightforward, even though there's some highlights on them. And it's not like airbrush, but it's just kind of highlights. So Reed meets these characters. They make sure not to touch. They're ready to fight, but they meet this kind of Kirby type of creature. And it's actually the character, the corpse from earlier. The character that was in, what was it, FF51, right? And he talks to them. He responds to Ben. Ben is surprised. Everything's cool. And this positive universe is surviving. Some people have made it out. Some people have taken things from there. Right? So you see the effects on the costume. Let's change color again right here. And then it comes a little more straightforward. But Reed has a plan to help this guy who's stuck in this thing because he was in the negative universe and he entered the positive, so he's kind of volatile, so they came with the suit. And Reed is like, this no-fill will kind of counteract that so you can interact with them, right? We find out what his name is. This is a great ode to all of the negative zone stuff that was done in FF from 51, the annual number 6, Burns, was it 256? Yeah, 256, and possibly some other things, right? And then the cosmic rod, there's a cosmic rod here. Obviously showing you how the nihilists got through. And this is what they said couldn't happen, but they're able to meet up, right? And then another lighting effect for their exit, right? When they get home, it's a different lighting, but it's more closer to the, it's greenish here, right? With the green, right? We go back to the blues, so the greens for the bend, and then we go back to the kind of yellow here. But then they're kind of this pinkish color here. And then there's a shift between colors between here and there. It's just a gorgeous book, right? So I didn't read you or tell you too much of the story, but this is where readers kind of go over what happened, and Ben is not having any of it. So there you go. You have this. I think because of the weight, it got better as it went along. So I suggest you go out there and buy it. And hopefully you're okay with going through my little phony color theory thing of talking about the whole, which I love, the old color from the comic books and the mood color that came after it, right? So go check out Full Circle and read it for yourself, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. Spinner out.